You're listening to the Hunt Suburbia podcast. I'm your host, Pat Guyette. Big bucks I've been dreaming often, every night till I'm in a coffin. Vermont woods to the burbs of Boston, I'm looking for a tree to get lost in. Crisp mornings, little dust in the snow. Quality time, just me and my bow. Fall evenings, I know just where to go for some quality times for me and my bow. It's just me and my bow. This episode is brought to you by Heron Hill Winery. Go to heronhill.com, make sure that they deliver to your state, and use code HS5 at checkout for an additional 5%. This week's interview is with Connecticut bowhunter Kyle Cooney. He is a former professional athlete. He still uses his athleticism today, but uses it in the mountains. He gets physically fit for the hunting season. He likes to chase elk out in the west, but he does a lot of his hunting and most of it right here in the Northeast in Connecticut on public lands. He's killed some really nice deer, all-around great guy, and has some great information for everybody. So listen up, and we hope you enjoy it. Yeah, you got to jump right in because you can get caught up having conversations.
You got other guys after me?
I got one more guy coming after you. Yep. Right. Yep. Timmy, you know the Big Woods Bucks guys? They focus on tracking, and they do, there's a lot of rifle hunting in the Northeast, tracking, getting on a track. And
my friend probably would, because I bow hunt almost like, and I brought the muzzleloader out last year, but I've shot all my deer with bow, except for like the first few when I started. So I don't really follow too much guys that.
And is that because of necessity? Because, I guess we'll do the intro real quick. Sitting down with Kyle Cooney here, and you're a Connecticut resident, and you do a lot of your hunting in Connecticut, right?
Correct.
And he's got a really nice Rhode Island buck here, though. That was the number one buck in 2005?
Yes.
2005, number one archery buck down there. It's a beautiful deer. So, but is it by necessity that you bow hunt, or do you just love it and you don't feel like you need to pick up a gun? And
I love it. I really love bow hunting. It's just the challenge that you get when you're being out there. The fact that you get to hunt in warm weather. That's probably one of the biggest things. I love hunting in the warmer weather. Obviously, when it's cold is when the deer are moving. But no, I pretty much hunt with the bow specifically. I started off when I was 12 bow hunting, and the next year I got my gun license when I was 13. And I just fell in love with bow hunting and being close to the animals and that rush that you get and the buck fever and everything else. So,
yeah, I grew up with a rifle in my hand and muzzleloader and killed all my deer that way. And then, I had some buddies that were nudging me over the years, saying, you got to get into bow hunting. How come you haven't got into bow hunting yet? You got to do it. And you're right. As soon as you do, it is it's I wouldn't say it's more fun. I do love rifle hunting. I love getting out into the big woods, but living in the suburbs, had to pick up a bow, and I just love it, man. I really wish I did it a little bit sooner. Yeah, because it's addicting.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I have a son who's 21, and I got him started with bow hunting early, and got him out there when he was following me around when he was probably 9-10 years old. Yeah, and then he got his bow license. So. And then he started doing archery and everything else, and he loves it just like I do. Yep.
And has he killed any good ones?
Yeah, he's got some nicer ones. He's down in Tennessee right now. Actually, his friend just got a real nice 9-pointer yesterday.
Yeah? How's the hunting in Tennessee?
The hunting in Tennessee is tough where he's at. He's on the eastern side of Tennessee, so he's hunting all national forest, and it's all mountains and everything else. So it's a little overwhelming to try to find a good spot, and he's in college down there, so he doesn't get a lot of time to get out. But it's all mountainous terrain. He does find deer sign. He got a nice doe last year. It was his first year hunting down there, so he's pretty pumped about that. But he's got the rut coming up now. So
yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I love hunting in the mountains. Do you do any of that? I mean, what does Connecticut got for mountains? There's some over on the western side,
hills.
Right?
They're hills. Yeah, they're not mountains like out west, but they're hills there. Most of the terrain that I hunt.
Oh, so you call Vermont and Maine mountains hills as well?
Well, if you've been out west, so I've been out west for elk, and those are mountains.
Yeah, I know.
Overwhelming.
They are, and but they're like, you know what? They're not as pretty as these ones. They're
No.
just rocks.
No.
These are covered in trees. There's something about the Northeast Mountains, you know?
For sure. For sure.
And also the prominences aren't too different. It's just the elevation. If you look at it, the prominence from the base to the peaks, they're really, and a lot of them, it's not that far off. It's just the overall elevation because everything is already higher out there. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, and there's a lot of, you're just going one way the whole time. Whereas I think out here, and even some of the places that I hunt in Connecticut, there's a lot of valleys, like peaks and valleys. You're going up and down. You don't have to go very far before you get up on another ridge top.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Yep. So have you done elk hunting out there too?
Yeah, I've been out west for elk 5 times, I think.
Yep. And what do you love that? I mean, everyone's talking about that lately.
I would give up deer hunting here
Really?
in the Northeast
Really?
for the rest of my life if I could bow hunt elk every September.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that puts it in perspective.
Yep. How many have you got?
I got one.
One.
Yep.
And you know what? That's honestly like when it's harder to get the animal. I mean, the harder it is, the more rewarding it is, obviously, especially putting in all that work. But that's what I've always loved about Vermont hunting is that I don't get one every year. I don't get one every 3 years up there. You know, if I get one, even if it's, it's not going to look like that one laying on the table from Rhode Island that you got, likely where I'm hunting there, it's going to be a little 6-pointer or something. But you know what? It feels good because it's hard.
Yeah, you put the time and the effort in, and when you finally get the reward at the end of it, it's a good thing for sure.
Yep.
And then just to piggyback on elk hunting, just the time and effort that it takes to train and to get ready for those hunts. It's not easy, and you're basically out there for 8-9 days, from a Saturday to Sunday, the following Sunday, and you want to make the best of every single day. So it's a little bit more intimidating than this. Obviously, you walk into a tree stand or you're stalking here, and there's a lot of miles that you put on. But so I got one. My buddy, who was with my buddy another time, and he got one on his hunt. So we've been successful 2 of the 3 times or 4 times we went, and then I've done a couple DIYs, and those are intimidating.
Yeah.
But like you said, if you get something on that, so I've gotten into elk on those hunts as well. Calling everything else, and it's been wonderful.
Yeah, there's something about the those bugles that you hear, when you in the rut, and man, that shriek is it's awesome. Makes your hair stand up.
Yeah. I had to teach myself how to bugle, cow call, everything else, and my friend and I went, and I don't know, the second or third morning that we were out there, we hadn't heard elk in a couple of days, and I let a bugle go, and I got a response, and I just about fell over because I was like, wow, something's actually calling back to me. This is wonderful.
Yeah, that's great. So let's go back to whitetails for now.
Yeah.
Have you hunted yet?
Yes. Yeah, I've been out quite a bit. I'm fortunate with my job that I get some free time to get out in the mornings or the evenings right now before it gets too dark too early.
Yep.
But it's been slow this year. A little bit slow.
When does the season start there?
Starts September 15th.
Okay, yeah.
Or thereabouts. It depends, because I don't know how it is in Massachusetts, but in Connecticut, you can hunt private land now on Sundays.
Oh.
So you can't hunt state land on Sundays.
How recent is that law?
Within the last probably 4 or 5 years. 3, 4 years, something like that.
Mass is just no hunting on Sundays at all. It'd be nice to have, to ease up on it like that a little bit. That's great.
Yeah, being able to hunt on Sundays, I think they should open it up to everything. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people that don't want you on state land right now. They think it's a hazard, but it's not.
And they're just because they're out there with their dogs or they're jogging.
People are walking exactly.
And we were just talking about it. They think hunters are these cavemen that shoot at everything. And,
correct.
It's just crazy.
They're just uneducated. It'd be nice to talk to more of those people and be able to open their eyes up and let them know what we do.
Have you had any of those people while you're hunting public come up and ask you questions or accost you in any way or anything like that?
No. The only thing I've ever had on public land, state land hunting, it's all been positive. Every single person that I've met and run into, getting ready at the car, where I park, whatever.
Yep.
And they're always either they're interested in what I'm doing.
Yep.
And they ask me a bunch of questions. Have you seen any deer? What's going on? I didn't even know hunting season was open. Things like that. And they always leave with a smile. Even talking with some of the game wardens that I've come across to check things, and they've always been all positive experiences.
Yeah. Well, game wardens, every time I've run across a game warden, they're great people. And you do most of your hunting on public in Connecticut, and it's a suburban state by nature. There's some rural there for sure, but let's talk about public hunting, public access, and how you go about scouting your public properties and finding a piece?
Well, back before there was any technology, it was basically just boots on the ground.
Yeah.
You just kind of find a spot and you'd see the tags on the tree and you'd pull out an old paper map and you'd look at it. And I remember my dad used to have the old topographic maps.
Yep.
And this was it. And I'd take a highlighter and you'd highlight it all out and, find out where the borders were and everything else and walk.
Use landmarks, and that's how you found out where you were.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And really get to know the land. And it took a long time to get an idea of what the deer patterns were in certain areas. So you'd find the sign, you'd find everything else, and then you'd basically have to sit and watch and see what was happening.
Yep.
Sometimes it would take 2 or 3 years before you figured out that there were deer moving on this ridge or on this run or whatever. I think now with technology, with between Onyx and Basemap and some of the other ones that are out there, and even just your regular, just going on Google Maps, that you can do a lot of e-scouting, I guess they call it. So I know I do that out west for the elk stuff, but there's a lot of opportunity to do that, and then you narrow down your spots to what you want to go and look at.
Yeah.
And I know you've talked to other guys and everything else, but it's hard, very hard to find a spot where other people haven't been.
Yeah. Yeah, especially in the suburbs.
It's very difficult.
The big woods you can.
Yeah. But even if you get, so I've had some opportunities to get some private land for a few years here and there, and they'll say, oh, nobody's hunting here, whatever, and then you go and scout the property, and you find
There's
sign.
more than public.
Yeah, you find sign of other people being there, there's tree stands, whatever, so it's really, really hard to find a spot where there hasn't been someone in there, whether it's legal or illegal, that they're in there chasing deer.
Do you ever think to yourself when you're out and hunting, and especially the big woods, I don't know why, I do a lot, where I just go, I bet you I'm the first human to put a track in this specific spot, like one spot, because if you could look at a map, if there was technology and you could pull it up and it shows all the human footprints of all time everywhere, that there would be a lot where one specific footprint hasn't been put. So I might find this weird awkward spot between a rock and a tree and just go put my foot there and go, yes, I'm the first person to ever put my foot down there. You ever do something like that?
A little bit. What blows me away is if you think about the landscape that we're in today, it's a lot of hardwoods, very mature hardwoods.
Yeah.
But if you think back 70, 80, 90 years,
farm
it was
land.
field.
Yeah.
You go out in the woods and you find all these stone walls.
Yep.
And somebody put all those stones there by hand.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're walking around, you're like, oh, nobody's been here, nobody's been here.
The Northeast is full of stone walls.
And then you think about who has been there in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's daunting, especially seeing some like the stone walls. They're in Connecticut. There's stone walls everywhere.
Yep. Same with Mass.
Everywhere.
Yep.
But back to the scouting portion of it, the technology side now gives you the opportunity to find a good area. I narrow it down to try to find landscape features that will get you in the best areas for like funnels, for deer.
Yep.
I use that a lot, and then obviously getting boots on the ground out there.
So for the layman who might not even know the terms, what are you looking for in a landscape feature? What are you looking for in the map in terms of landscape? Funnels are, we know there's saddles, there's benches, there's rivers.
I'm looking for spots where deer are lazy, for the most part, except for the ones that grow old, obviously. But deer are lazy. They're just like us. So when you're walking through the woods and you're scouting, you're finding these different areas that deer are probably going through as well.
Yeah.
So I try to find areas where deer have to walk.
Yeah.
They don't want to go and climb a hill.
Or maybe there's 3 barriers on either side. I've started doing that. Like there's a pond here, so they're not walking in the pond. Mm-hmm. Maybe they do swim a lot, but they're not going to be swimming there. Mm-hmm. There's a rock face, steep ledge on this side of it. You basically know they have to go there.
They have to go there. So, and why do they want to go there? Is there bedding on the other side of it? Is there food on the other side? So what are they going through there for? I found some really, really good areas through the years that deer just come through every single year. You might not find a lot of sign there. So for guys who are out there who are looking for rubs and scrapes and scat and everything else, there's some areas that I hunt where deer come through there and you won't find sign. Yeah. Because it's just a travel corridor for them. Yeah. And it's only in certain portions of the year. So you sit there now, nothing but in the first, second week of November. Right. And you'll get does and bucks cruising all through there. Yep. So so I look for a lot of landscape features. Obviously some of the spots that I hunt in Connecticut with the state land, there's houses that border a lot of the state land, and the deer this year no, because there's a ton of acorns, but in areas where there's not a lot of acorns, the deer love going to people's yards.
Yeah.
You got bird feeders. I mean, people are feeding them now too.
And they feel safe even bedding around there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I live in an area where it's suburban around me, and I get deer in the yard all the time. And I'm blown away at some of the size of some of the bucks that come through in November, looking for those does to sit in those neighborhoods. So I use a lot of those features and use them pretty well to try to find some really good areas. And then obviously it's just sitting in the right tree and narrowing down your spot to get there with the bow.
All right, we'll do the raffle real quick. We were doing a Trophy Ridge site this week, and this is one of the last 2 Trophy Ridge sites. We'll do one more after this one, but congratulations to winner Sour Diesel on iTunes. If your name is Sour Diesel, shoot me a message to huntsuburbia@gmail.com. We'll confirm it's you, of course, and send you the site. And next week, we'll raffle off another subscription to OnX. And what we have to do for this subscription is leave a review on iTunes. Get in there, subscribe on iTunes, leave a 5-star rating, and write a review. We're at 47 now. I want to get up over 50 next week. Keep those reviews coming, and we'll draw an OnX subscription from the new reviews. If you've already written one, shoot me an email. Let me know you've written one before, and we will enter you into the drawing as well. Trophy Ridge products are intelligently designed to give you a distinct advantage and be deadly accurate. The team at Trophy Ridge believes smart, hunt-inspired innovation should be at the foundation of each product's existence. You have enough to worry about on a hunt. Your gear should not be one of them. Trophy Ridge accessories give you the comfort of always knowing you're using the best bow hunting equipment when out in the woods or at the range. For information on the all-new 2021 lineup of Trophy Ridge sights, quivers, rests, releases, and stabilizers, visit trophyridge.com. Trophy Ridge, the tools bow hunters trust. Look, I hate ticks. You hate ticks. I know you hate ticks. I know your parents hate ticks. I know your kids hate ticks. We all hate ticks. You know what I want to do to ticks? I want to kill them. You know how you do that? Sawyer permethrin. Not only repels ticks, keeps them off your clothes, but if they do happen to get on there, it'll kill them. They only have to go over 1.5 inches of your clothing that's been treated with Sawyer permethrin to die. What's better than that? Maybe killing a big buck, but this is a close second. These guys are an amazing company. They're U.S. based. They're family owned and operated. Look for the yellow bottle. You can find them in Cabela's, Bass Pro Shop, Dick's Sporting Goods, Moose Jaw, REI. Find them online. Whatever you got to do. Get Sawyer permethrin. It is not expensive. It'll save your life from these diseases that ticks carry. And it's a quick application. You spray it on your clothes, spray it on your hat, put it on your socks and shoes, put it on your backpack, let it dry outside in the breeze, and it dries odorless. The deer are not going to pick you off from putting this stuff on your clothes. I guarantee you. Get Sawyer permethrin. You won't regret it. On that kind of similar vein there, and this is something that I think I never really thought about too much until recently when I started putting up a lot more game cams and trail cams. This year I was able to scout more due to COVID working from home. Again, I had more time to get out in the morning and the evenings and do more scouting. So I ran a lot of cams, and when you find a spot that maybe there's a couple trails converging, you know that it's a game, you can see it's a game trail coming from a few different ways, you can pick a bad spot to put the camera. If you're looking at just one, but if you take your time and actually think about every possible spot you can put your camera on those trails, there's always one where you can get, no matter what, the deer have to walk in front of that camera, you know? So the same way where you try to find those land features for your stands and where you're going to hunt, in a micro aspect, you can do that with trail cams too, because you could be in that same spot, pick the wrong tree, and 80% of the deer you're not going to get on your camera because they'll be going behind it or they're going to skirt the edge of it. But there is always a spot where you can get, they're going to go through everything. So for people who are looking for spots for trail cams, think about that. Really take your time to find the right tree for it.
Yeah, the right tree, or find a way that you can get the deer in front of the camera.
Yeah.
Without food. Because I think before the season, after the season, I don't know what the laws are up in Massachusetts. In Connecticut, you can't bait on state land. You can do some on some private land areas in certain parts of the state. So it's easy to get deer in front of the camera.
Yep.
But I don't use a lot of cameras, but I have used them on occasion. I've actually got 2 out there right now that are doing work for me, and I've gotten some really good pics of some nice deer that are on it. That I don't know if it's good or bad.
Yeah.
Because I'm the type of guy who likes to go in the woods and just see what happens.
Right.
And see what comes by.
I was going to say that.
I'm not real picky. I mean, I've shot some really nice bucks. I'll shoot spikes, 4-horns, 6-pointers. I shoot some does. But I think if you get in the mindset once you start seeing some big deer on your cams and you're waiting for those deer,
yep.
especially on a public land area, the chances of you getting that deer to come past you again, it's slim. It's really slim, unless you have a really, really good corridor where they're going to come through all the time. So the cameras are good and they're bad.
And it takes a little bit of the excitement out of the day when you're hunting because, like you said, if you don't know anything that's in there, then anything could pop out. Mm-hmm. You don't know. There could be a massive, and there always still can be, something can come from a swamp or next piece of woods over during the rut and pop in that you have no idea that deer's there. But yeah, there is a little bit. I notice it a little bit now that I'm running more cameras. That whereas before, if I saw a little bit of horn, I was like, oh, I'd be super pumped about it. But now I can identify, oh, that's not one of the big ones I'm looking for, and it takes a little bit of the excitement out. The adrenaline isn't pumping as much. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've also had those opportunities where, like you said, you see a smaller deer or whatever, it's not the one that you want, and you kind of relax.
Yeah.
But you got to stay ready because there are times when the bigger one is just behind them
or
coming from a different direction. I've had that happen, and they catch you off guard. So, yeah, you got to be ready. The cameras are good. They let you know what's in the area. They let you know what's coming by. I think more importantly, they let you know the times when they're active.
Yeah.
So I have a couple friends who use the cellular game cameras where their phones are pinging all the time.
Yep.
And one of my friends will be sending me texts and saying, hey, he goes, like, the deer are moving like crazy today. My phone is going crazy. And then there's other days, like, it looks like a gorgeous day out and you want to get out there. And he's like, I got no activity.
Yep.
Don't even bother.
That was yesterday.
Don't even bother going out.
I got a few cell cams going. I just got them this year. Yesterday, it seemed like it was going to be a great day for movement. It rained for, I don't know, like 30 hours straight, and then it cleared up, and I was like, I'm going to get a deer today. It's going to be a lot. I didn't see one deer, and none of my cameras pinged at all during the day. Even last night, it was very slow. So,
yeah, it's a slow time of year. With the season opening up so early in Connecticut on September 15th, I found that the first 7 to 10 days of the season are usually really good. You see a lot of deer movement. They're still in their summer patterns. You get an opportunity to get deer in front of your stands. And then after that 7 to 10 day period, it's just activity curtails down to like nothing. And even like right now, I think they're just going to start moving again towards usually about the 23rd, 24th, 25th of October.
Do you usually take a couple weeks off in this lull period?
No.
No,
because I love being out there.
Dude, I forgot that you can hunt on Sunday in Connecticut, so now I feel bad that you came here because you could have been. This morning was a good hunting day.
Only private property.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I don't have
feel
that.
as bad.
But I have had some opportunities. I've had some bad private property, and it sucked me in. And I've hunted there on Sundays in the past, and it's like, oh, what am I doing? I'm sitting here doing nothing.
Yeah.
And then you look at your game cam, and you got deer all over it, and you're like, man, so. Yeah, it's a catch-22, but right now you got that, whatever they want to call it, the October lull. Some guys believe in it, some guys don't. I definitely believe in it. I have another good friend of mine who hunts a lot. He has some really, really good private property, and he won't even go out there until the end of October. And he shoots some really big bucks every year from this one. He's got a honey hole, so. But he won't even go out there because he said it's not worth it. He goes, not worth it screwing up your spots. It's not worth it messing up anything. He's got a small chunk of private property, and the deer just funnel through there. And you just gotta wait till they start moving again.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I don't think there is anything to believe and not believe in when it comes to the October lull. It's like you can still kill deer, but they absolutely are moving less.
Correct.
And they're back to their beds earlier in the morning, and they're getting up later. So
and you're losing. Think about the thing. You're losing daylight every day.
Mm-hmm.
So those deer who were moving, at 6, 7 o'clock at night, and it was still light out for another hour, are now moving in pure darkness.
Yep.
So
if they're doing the movement at the same time. Yeah.
So you got the time, and it's coming up when we change the clocks and everything else for guys who can get out there after work right now. They're not going to be able to do that in a few weeks. But you're going to get 14, 15, 16 hours of darkness.
Yep.
So obviously they've got more opportunity to move at night than they do during the day.
When do you think the activity picks up? You said like October 24th, 25th. Some people always say like, oh, I get out there Halloween, and they always see it.
Halloween is like it flips a switch.
Yeah.
I've seen it every year. Rubs, scrapes will pop up.
Those ghosts start coming out.
Yeah, rubs, scrapes, and everything start popping up more often. But you get more daytime activity. So the bucks are still moving, but they're moving at night a lot, and they're moving like early in the morning, 3, 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
Getting back to their bedding area. But usually that Halloween is when the light switch flips. When I look back and I see the deer that I've shot, most of them have come anywhere from the 23rd, 24th of October all the way. Well, our season ends in Connecticut. When I say ends, it ends on state land, usually about the 17th, 18th, 19th, somewhere in there of November. So usually between those like 3-week period.
Just the bow season or the whole hunting season?
Bow season stops then on the state land.
Okay.
And then gun season will open up. So one thing that I'd love to see, and I'd love to talk to people about and figure out why. I mean, we just got Sunday hunting, which was great. But to do bow as a lesser weapon during shotgun and muzzleloader in Connecticut, that'd be wonderful.
John does that.
Yeah.
The guy that was just, John Petrick was here. We interviewed before you, and he always uses his bow, even in rifle season.
Yeah. So I would love to do that. I mean, just wear the orange. You're the same as anyone else out there. You're taking the same precautions, everything.
You can't do that in Connecticut?
No.
It is so crazy, the different laws state to state.
No. They just passed the law where you can use a muzzleloader as a lesser weapon during shotgun season on state land.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, but they won't let you use a bow during any of that as a lesser weapon. Rhode Island, yes. Rhode Island. So I used to hunt Rhode Island as a kid. My parents used to have a place down there. Mm-hmm. And that's why I ended up getting a lot of the deer that I got early on in my deer hunting career. That's funny. Early on, because you could hunt from, back then it was October 1st all the way to January 31st, straight through. Public land, state land, private land didn't make a difference. I think the laws are still the same down there. They changed some things up and more tags and whatnot. But yeah, I'd love to see them change it in Connecticut where you could use the bow as a lesser weapon. Because I would hunt with that. I'd never pick up a gun again. There's no reason to. For what I do, I love just getting close to them.
Yeah. Unless you want to get up and track, like tracking, I think you would like tracking, actually. And you're an athlete. We're going to talk about being an athlete. And I think bow hunting, I referenced in one of our podcasts that, golf, you can like kind of be in your prime. The professional golfers, are in their prime in their 40s, 30s and 40s, but they can play competitively for a very long time. Mm-hmm. But I think the average golfer, like if I played every year, I'd still be getting better until I was 70. Hunting is one of those sports I think you can be in your prime in your 50s and 60s, right? Yeah. And kill the biggest buck of your life in your 70s. That can happen. That's what's so cool about hunting.
Well, those guys are better because they slow everything down. Yeah. I'm seeing that more now, where I slow everything down. Slow down my movement, slow down, the way that my cadence when I get into the woods. Whereas I think, 10, 15 years ago, it was like, get to your stand as fast as you can, get up there as quick as you can, and then just sit and wait. And same thing, get down and get out. Don't bother doing anything else. But, those guys, they slow stuff down.
How old are you now?
47.
Yep. Yeah. You're definitely in your prime in hunting.
I would hope so.
Yeah. And you seem like you're still in pretty good shape.
I hope I got a lot ahead of me. I mean, who knows? You never know. Tomorrow's not guaranteed.
That's true.
Yeah.
But I think because what I was going to say is I think you would like... if you would pick up a gun for anything, it would be for tracking.
I would like to do that. I did it earlier. Earlier on, I used to do it with the muzzleloader because you'd get snow during muzzleloader season. Yep. But we haven't gotten too much snow lately. I would love to pick it up and track and everything. There's some big areas in Connecticut where you can do that. On state land, obviously not like up in New Hampshire, Vermont, and whatnot. Yeah. But I've had some really good success getting close to deer in the snow. But we don't get a lot of snow, and then it's during the work week or something. So you get a good snowstorm, you want to get out and start tracking. It's tough to coordinate everything unless you got a flexible schedule. For sure. So you play baseball, right? Yes.
What's your story on baseball, real quick?
So real quick with baseball, grew up in Meriden, Connecticut, and went to Platt High School. Finished there, went to Jacksonville University for a year, played baseball down there, didn't really appreciate baseball too much, transferred up to UConn, and played there for 2 years. I was a catcher. Didn't catch too much there, but I could always hit, and ended up getting drafted by the Dodgers in 1994.
Awesome.
So got drafted by them, played for 6 years in the minor leagues, had a few surgeries, and ended up having Tommy John, which is they replaced the ligament in your elbow. Yeah. And came back from that, but as a catcher, it's tough to continue to, have the arm strength and the
You'd think it'd
accuracy.
be your knees that would go, right? Isn't that?
I never had any problems with my knees. Now I kind of do. I had a surgery on it for a meniscus tear and a collision at the plate back when they could hit catchers.
Yeah.
And now it's bothering me a little bit here and there. But between all that stuff, I played for 6 years. Really enjoyed it. Really liked the whole aspect of playing, and had it thought in my mind that I had a chance to make it to the big leagues. But then between getting older and surgeries and and everything else, decided that that was enough. Let's move on and start real life.
Now, were you bow hunting the whole time that you were a baseball player?
Yeah, so I started bow hunting when I was before I started bow hunting when I was 12, and at the time you had to go with a mentor. So actually, my little league coach. So my dad hunted a lot. The whole reason I got into hunting, just touching this real quick. So my dad used to go up to Maine.
Yep.
For 7 or 8 years in a row, he used to go up there to hunting camps, and he'd hunt with the rifle, and he'd never shot a deer. But he started telling me all these stories about everything going on up there. So that piqued my interest in deer hunting, because I used to tag along with him, and we would do pheasant hunting, rough grouse when there was grouse in Connecticut, rabbits, everything else. And then as soon as I turned 12, I bought a bow, did everything on my own, and then went with my little league coach, who helped me out, just because he had more time to go out and hunt and everything else. And then I went with my dad too as well, but started doing that. Go back to what you just asked me, because I totally forgot what you asked me.
Just if you were bow hunting while
I was playing baseball. I did. It was tough to do.
I know there's a lot of hunters that play baseball.
Well, there were some years. So the minor league season would go to about the middle of September.
Yep.
And then you'd come home for a bit if you did.
And you were Dodgers, right?
Yes.
You don't want to hunt in L.A.
Yeah. Well, I never got to play out there. I played all over the country, so I did get to see some really cool spots in the country. Got to go out to Hawaii with that as well, but. Most of the time, because I was a prospect in the organization, they wanted you playing fall ball somewhere, so I didn't get a chance to hunt too much. I think 1 or 2 of the years I had surgery on an ankle or a knee or something, and I got to hunt those years, so that was great. But I really had to wait till baseball was done to get out there, because you have a season, but then you have a season beyond the season. So
never stops.
Anytime I could get out, and I wanted to be the best I could be, so. You want to practice all the time, and you don't get a chance to do all that, and sometimes you don't feel that confident to be out there.
Has hunting in a way kind of replaced that for you? You want to be the best hunter you can be. Has it replaced your love of baseball for love of hunting? Like, if you put all that energy you could have put into baseball if you got to the majors and all that?
It's a deep question, man.
Yeah.
Very deep question.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's replaced it. I will say that going out west and getting prepared to hunt elk has kind of rekindled that whole athlete aspect.
Yes.
Of being ready to hunt and being the best you can be and giving it everything you got every day. You always say, leave it on the field.
Yeah. Well,
if you weren't prepared to go and do the mountainous hunting, you'd probably look back and go, man, I could have gave it more. So yeah, I would say that would replace it a little bit, staying in shape for that year round and everything.
I just know like a lot of guys that will have an addictive personality. You can get addicted to something. I've heard stories of people that replace their addictions with hunting, because hunting is definitely an addiction, but it's a healthy one, right? Like I guess
that depends who you ask.
You can quit, be really big into drinking and trying to look for a new vice and get into and use hunting and as a just a way to replace it. So that's why I asked. One of the guys that we have talked to had something similar to that happen to him, and now hunting is that's his 24/7.
Yeah, I've hunted for so long. 47. So you're looking at 35 years.
Yep.
Of bow hunting, either with someone or on my own or whatever. So it's never been anything that's gone away, and I hope it's something that I can continue to do until I can't get out there anymore.
Yeah.
But definitely staying in shape and living that lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's not just like we were talking about. It's not a part-time thing. It's a full-time thing.
Yeah.
So.
Let's talk about being an athlete in bow hunting. I don't know why, but I keep drawing comparisons back to golf, and for a long time, golfers were looked at. You can be just some fat guy and swing a club and do all right. John Daly. But now, as golfers are evolving in the new age. I mean, everybody's an athlete now. Everybody's I think Tiger Woods probably started all that. He's in the gym, he's working out, he's taking care of his body, he's eating the right things, and golfers are now athletes. I think bow hunting is similar to that. You can have some guys that are lazy, unprepared, body-wise going into the season, but and it doesn't necessarily have to be bow hunting. And if you're just going out and walking 100 yards into the woods, you're not going to need it as much as, say, going out west and climbing those mountains for elk. Or if you want to get on a track in northern Maine and walk 15 miles a day after a big buck who lives there and does that every single day, you need to be in shape for that. But let's talk about like your training and what you do to get in shape for hunting. You're in really good shape, wearing a Wilderness Athlete shirt. I know the people at Wilderness Athlete too from my other job, so it's just kind of a cool coincidence. But let's talk about it.
Yeah, so it's just, I don't know, staying in shape. It's just something I do every day. So before COVID hit, I was at a gym. So I'd go to the gym probably 6 days a week or so, usually in the mornings. If I couldn't get there before work, I'd go after work. But really just trying to keep yourself in shape, eating good, everything. I don't know how much that correlates to northeastern whitetail hunting with your success.
Yeah.
I know it gives me drive to be out there and to, those mornings when you don't want to wake up or, you got only a few hours to get out there in the afternoon or whatever and like, should I go or should I not? So it gives me that drive to do that, to get up out of bed by myself and like, okay, drag yourself and get out there and do what you got to do. So I think that lends itself that you were talking about the addictive personality, where I've got that type of personality where like, all right, if I want to get this done, I got to do it myself or I got to take care of it myself.
Yeah. So,
but the whole fitness thing, I train right now. I've got a whole gym set up in my basement. So we got everything down there from cardio to my son actually, when he was home in the spring from college with COVID shutdowns and everything else. And he built a whole deadlift platform and squat rack and everything else. So yeah, we got everything you need to be successful there to get things done. But it's just a lot. It's a lot of weight training. I don't do a lot of cardio. I consider my cardio like putting my tree stand on my back and walking through the woods. And
that's got to bite you in the ass when you go to Colorado, though.
Okay, so for that training, that's different training. Yeah. So for that training, I have a pack, and usually I'll start off with just the pack. Sometime like I was doing it too early. I was starting way too early and burning out too early. So I was really ready for a September hunt, like in July.
Yep.
And then I was just cruising through August and everything. But now what I'll do is, so next year I'm going for sure somewhere. My son's finishing up college, and I'll be going with him. But the training for that usually will start as far as like cardio and packing weight and everything else, usually like May. And so I've got a couple of whatever you want to call them, mountains, hills, where I'm at. So, you get an elevation gain of usually about 700, 800 feet. And I'll do that. So I'll put the pack on, and then I'll move to putting, 15, 20 pounds into it, and then do a couple days where you're going like 30, 40 pounds. I don't put a lot of weight in there. If you listen to some of the guys online and everything else, they're like, put 80 pounds in there. But that just wreaks havoc. I mean, especially as you're getting older, wreaks havoc on your joints and your knees and everything else. And you want to feel good the next day. Yeah. That's really what I try to achieve with my training. So when I'm done for that day, that the next day I can go and replicate that exact same activity and have no soreness.
Mm-hmm.
So
there's the trackers talk about it where you can get, and they take clients out because they're guides up in Maine, and people want to go up there and try tracking, and they don't realize how hard it can be. So everybody going into it's gung-ho. Some of them will train and some just won't. They can't wait to get up there. All of a sudden, the first day they walk 15 miles, and it's tough walking in the northeastern woods and hills. It is tough walking. It's very there's boulders and blowdowns everywhere, and there's a lot of obstacles. And they quit after day one or day two, where if you just push a little bit further, you do it another day, then you hit your wind, and your legs get used to it. And I mean, it really is. There is that second wind, but it is easy to be like, all right, I'm done. That was too much. I don't want to walk. I don't want to walk anymore. As soon as you do that, you let your brain tell you that it's over. It's over. But you push through it a little bit.
Yeah, usually it's that 2-3 day period where usually the first day you're going to be sore or whatever if you've gone a lot. Second day you're like, well, I don't know if I want to do this, but you do it, and then by the third day you're golden.
Yeah, then it's just like feels great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what you're talking about is the same as if you went, we went out to Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, whichever. So you're at elevation out there.
Yeah.
So you can train as hard as you want here, But the peaks around here, you know, they're 1,000 feet, 1,500 feet. You could probably hit in the Northeast somewhere.
Yeah, the peaks are lower than base camps.
Yeah. So you're out there. I mean, we were up to 9,500 feet elevation. So usually the first day kicks your butt because you're just sucking wind. It's not that you're tired, but you can't breathe because there's no oxygen.
Yeah.
Or low oxygen. And then the second day, usually by the end of the second day, you're good, and you get acclimated. So as long as you train hard enough here. But you're right about hiking up here and walking through the woods and everything else, especially with the mature forest. There's really I don't know if there's any logging operations going on, but back when I started hunting in the 80s and the early 90s, there was a lot of logging in Connecticut, and a lot of good growth for the deer. There weren't blowdowns everywhere in the woods because the old trees weren't blowing down, but now you go out through the woods and they're everywhere, especially with these storms we've been having too. It's a mess. Like, it's a complete mess.
I was in the woods with my dad during that storm last week, on last Wednesday, I think it was. Oh my God.
It's a mess in the woods. And then, you're hiking in the dark or whatever to your stand on some of these state land spots, and, there's a blowdown. Or you get to where your tree is and there's a treetop that got taken off 15 yards from where you're at. It completely changes the way of the landscape.
Or your tree is blown down.
Yeah, I know. You gotta be careful.
Yeah. So what do you got do you have any particular bucks that you know that are around that you are hunting, or because you don't run as many trail cams, you kind of just get out in the woods in Connecticut and wait to see what comes by?
Yeah, the latter of the two.
Yeah.
I've gotten...
it's a fun way to do it.
I got a nice picture of a nice 8 on some state land, which was a surprise because usually, they're far and few between as far as like even the ones that you see. But I got a picture of a nice 8, and he's up in one area where I think that I got a chance of getting him once they start moving during the day.
Do you do any shed hunting at all?
I tried. I've tried. I have found some. I found some by mistake, completely by accident.
Yeah.
Like literally stopping where I was at, looking around to see where my next move was, and then looking down at my feet, and there'd be an antler there.
Yeah. I always find rubs and like scrapes that way when I'm in the woods. You just take a break to pull your phone out, check out where you are, look at your map, and then you're like, oh shit, there's a rub right there.
I tried the whole shed thing. Some of the best years for one of my friends went out and specifically looked for sheds like during these times when we had those big snows, the big snowstorm winters that we had about like 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And literally the deer were on just trails, like packed down everything else, and he would just follow these trails.
Even in Connecticut, huh?
Yeah, he would just follow the trails wherever they went, and he'd find antlers.
Migration trails.
Something.
Well, they talk about that up in Maine. The deer on migration trail in the big woods. The deer they'll go 50 miles to their winter yard.
Okay.
If a heavy snow comes in, they'll travel sometimes 50 to 100 miles. They have some colored deer that have gone 100 miles during the winter migration. So at a heavy snow, it triggers them to, all right, let's get to the safe zone. Let's get to where we're going to be all winter.
Yeah, they can't get anywhere else because the snow's too deep. But like I said, I remember those, like we had some bad late winters, like March, April, where we had bad snow and like the crust over it and everything else, and the deer were just forced to be on these certain trails. And he would just follow the trails and he'd find antlers. Yeah, I found a few here and there. I found some when I went pheasant hunting and things. I did a lot of turkey hunting this spring.
I've heard a lot of people did because of COVID.
Oh, the woods were packed. I've never seen so many people. I didn't know people hunted turkeys that much.
Yep.
Every place that I went, there was a truck parked there or came in after us, or we'd meet guys on the trail coming out. So I try to do a lot of shed hunting during that phase because everything is still not, there's no growth out there yet early in the season.
Yeah.
But it's tough. It's tough to find shed antlers.
Hey, it's a good thing when we see more hunters out, though, right? We want it's one of those things. Yeah, we all want more hunters. You just don't want them in your spot.
Yeah, I don't know so much about wanting more hunters. I don't run. So with archery, I don't run into people hardly at all. And I hunt public land. So I don't run into guys like...
One of the great things about archery is I think most people still are, we are the minority archery. Most people are gun hunters. Mm-hmm. So you do have the woods more to yourself.
Yeah, there's definitely more gun guys out there. The gun licenses and sales have taken a nosedive. I mean, if you look at the patterns of everything.
Long term?
Yeah, if you look at like the last 10 years.
Yeah.
I know in Connecticut specifically, probably because there's smaller chunks of land that you can hunt and there's different regulations on that. And also I think that generation that came up, like even my generation that came up, a lot of my friends started out hunting with a rifle or a muzzleloader that followed their fathers out. because that's what they did. They didn't bow hunt. I mean, the bow hunting in Connecticut, bow hunting in Connecticut didn't have a season, I think, until the 70s, like the late 70s or something, where it first opened up. So everybody hunted with a gun. So that generation of guys, that are like in their late 40s and 50s probably started off with a rifle in their hands.
And a lot of them probably still are only rifle.
Yeah, and now you see a lot of the archery sales. I mean, everything's being promoted as such, like we were talking about, being an athlete and everything else, and hunting. There's more bow hunters that are out there. I don't know where they're hunting because I don't run into them hardly ever on state land. Every now and then I run into a guy here and there, but they're usually gone the next season, or I never see them again after that one time.
Because everything you hear about Connecticut is that they have huge deer, but it's in those private pockets.
There's some really, really big deer. The shoreline in Connecticut and Fairfield County had some super, super, super big deer back before they opened up everything to just basically the state wanted to get rid of deer. So they gave guys unlimited tags. There was baiting that was going on. You can hunt really on a postage stamp. I think the laws are different in Massachusetts. What do you got to be 500 feet away? Unless you have permission.
Yeah, you got to be 500 feet away from a house unless you have permission, and 100 feet from the road. That's never been a problem, the road, but housing.
Yeah, Connecticut, you can hunt, like, you can stand on somebody's back deck if they sign a permission slip. So
wow.
I actually had a little chunk of private
And do you
land.
only have to get their permission, or do you have to get neighbors' permission too?
Just get their permission.
Yeah, that's cool.
Obviously, if the deer, if you shoot a deer, it runs on the other person's property. You got to acquire permission to get the deer. But I had permission from a woman, and she only owned like 2.5 acres. And literally, I would park my car on her driveway and walk like 50 yards and climb a tree.
Yeah.
And I had a camera over there, and the size of the deer and the amount of deer that were going through there were ridiculous. And it was right along a highway, so they had to walk between her house and the highway. And like I was saying, you get neighbors who feed deer and everything else, so they concentrate the deer into one area. So.
All right, here's a little pro tip for you guys, and this is probably the most important tip that I can give you as a hunter. Whether you're a new hunter or you're a veteran hunter, this is something that is going to go a long, long way into helping you kill deer. So make sure you're paying attention, okay? What you have to do is make sure that your wives and your girlfriends are happy during hunting season. I mean, you should make sure that they're happy all year long, but especially during hunting season, make sure that they're happy. So butter them up a little bit extra. What I've always found that works really well is buying her some wine. So I buy a case of wine from Heron Hill Winery at the beginning of the season, and if I get through it, which we usually do somewhere around, middle November, I'll re-up and I'll buy another case. Heron Hill Winery is out of the Finger Lakes in New York. One of my best friends is the vineyard manager there, so that's why I started supporting them, but I keep coming back because I love their wine. The owner of the vineyard is a big-time hunter, and he makes some great red wines specifically that pair well with venison and game birds. My favorite is the Eclipse Red. It's a nice full-body red, and it goes great with any kind of venison. And their Game Bird Red is great with any kind of game birds, but, they've got tons of wines. Go check them out. And they have a special deal for Hunt Suburbia podcast listeners. That's you guys. If you want to keep supporting us, please support our sponsors. And there is not a better sponsor to go out and support than Heron Hill Winery. Go to heronhill.com and use code HS5 for an additional 5%. So what they got on there is if you buy 6 bottles or more, there's a volume discount where you get 10% off. So with HS5, you'll get an additional 5% off, which they don't give to anybody else, just you guys. And if you buy a full case, which is 12 bottles for all of you mathematicians out there, you'll get 15% off from their volume discount plus an additional 5%. So that's 20% off total using code HS5. And also, any purchases of 6 or more bottles, it's free shipping. So they're one of the only wineries that have free shipping out there, and they'll get it right to your doorstep in these COVID times. And, you can get it within a week of ordering it. And I really just can't tell you enough. Go out there, support Heron Hill Winery. That's heronhill.com, and use code HS5 so that we know that you're going there from listening to us, and you're going to go a long way to helping out this podcast. Heron Hill Winery, the official wine of hunters, and more importantly, their wives and girlfriends everywhere. Highways. That's you saw a couple dead deer on the way here, but highways are a magnet too. I mean, partly I think because the sides of the roads have to be mowed down or whatever. It keeps some undergrowth there and some browse that natural for deer to feed on. But also they feel safe because no one's really walking on the side of the highway. It's just those cars blasting by, and I think that hum and all that feels safe to them. What do you think?
Yeah, it's safe to them for sure. I had a chunk of private property for about 7 or 8 years, and it was right alongside 91.
Yep.
Like you saw, from my stand, I would see cars whizzing by, and the deer are unaffected by it. And they are also, I think, put at ease because you could get away with a lot. You could get away with a lot more movement. You could get away with a lot more
sound,
even scent.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have anywhere to go. They were just filing back and forth along the highway. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, they definitely feel safe around it. And then you see with all these storms we're getting, I mean, they're doing a good job of cutting down everything around the highways, which is basically like a big salad for deer.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of deer that are going to hang out there. I mean, I see them. They tease you. You go out in the woods, you see nothing, and you're driving home, and you see 5, 6 deer on the side of the road coming home.
That happened to me last year.
Yep.
Last year I was hunting like an hour and a half away from I'll drive an hour and a half to some spots. I don't necessarily hunt around here all the time. It's I love exploring, and you're always just, as a hunter, you're an explorer anyway by nature. You want to see what's over the next hill and what's behind that next field, and so I was an hour and a half away, and a great day to hunt. Didn't see any deer on the way back. I was on a transition from one highway to another highway. You know, those exits that's a ramp up, and but there was traffic. Back pre-COVID, there was a lot more traffic. Mm-hmm. One good thing, it hasn't been much traffic to deal with lately. And I'm just going around the exit very slowly because it's bumper to bumper. So I'm actually stopped, and my headlights, straight on a curve going around the exit, and there's it must have been like a 170-inch buck. He's just his head's just looking over the guardrail at me. He was feeding there and popped his head up, just freaking 10 feet in front of my car. It was just awesome. I mean, it was beautiful deer. Yeah. It was really cool. And that's
smart.
How it happens.
That's how they get there too. They're smart. They know how to survive.
I took a screenshot where I was, got home and investigated it. That thing was on just a little finger that went out. That was probably 5 acres that went out into a reservoir that you can't hunt there. It's a town water supply and all that stuff. But literally there's maybe 5 feet wide on the edge of the highway that goes around, but there's water right next to it, and it's a lake. Mm-hmm. And then there was this one finger, and he must just sleep in that finger, get up and eat on the edge, and just go right back there. And he's grown so big because no one's ever stepped foot in there.
Yeah, until he smells some good does, and then he gets
he gets hit on the highway.
He gets hit on the highway or moves somewhere else for sure. Yeah. It's just an amazing. Like I was saying, I where I live, I have deer that file through the yard all the time. I have some apple trees in the yard. I have some apple trees in the yard, so I get deer that come down off the mountain and everything else. And there'll be no bucks. And then November 3rd, 4th, 5th, somewhere in there, you'll get his first pictures of bucks.
Have you killed one in your yard? There?
No, I have not.
How long you lived there?
I've been there 6 years.
Yeah,
I haven't really tried. Last year there was a rainy day. This is just a quick story. It was a rainy day. I put a camera out in the yard just to monitor what's going on, and I had gotten a picture of a really, really nice 8, and it was during the day, and I was gone. I'm in sales, so I'm on the road all the time, and he was out during the day, and the next day I looked out of my bathroom window, and it's pouring rain, and he's standing out in the yard behind a pine tree. And I was like, oh, boy.
Well, they feel safe in the rain.
So I ran downstairs, I threw on some camo, whatever, and I went outside, and I kept the tree between me and him, and he would not move. And I'm like, what is going on? I knew that he had a doe. I knew he had to have had a doe there sitting there somewhere. So I'm looking through the wood line. Sure enough, I found the doe, and she's just standing there, and he will not move. He won't move to do anything with her. Long story short, I never got a shot at it, but I definitely would have shot it. He was a really, really solid 8, probably pushing 120, 125, somewhere in there, right in my backyard.
Nice.
But but they'll filter down. So I use that knowledge that I've gained just in the yard, seeing what the activity of the deer is, to move that, because if it's happening there, it's happening in other places. And I'll get bucks moving from the first week of November all the way through the second week of December. It's usually like that first rut, and then that second rut comes in.
Right.
And usually, this is ironic because I've never shot a big one later in the season, but the biggest bucks that I've got on camera are during that middle of December time frame. I don't know if they're looking. I don't know if they're looking or whatever. Or they're coming out of the woodwork.
Yep.
The biggest ones that I've seen.
I haven't hunted much that time frame. You know, I do some Vermont muzzleloader, usually like first week of December. But yeah, I haven't hunted that much, and I hear about the second rut. I haven't experienced it, but it's those fawns, right? It's pretty much like the ones that are getting in late. You know, they're just getting into their maturity, being able to breed. It could be
a fawn, or I mean, I've seen some bucks chasing full-grown does that either haven't been bred or they were bred, but they were unsuccessful or whatever, getting pregnant.
Yeah. And
then they're cycling again, so they're going to cycle back in that second week of December, and those bucks will be chasing them again. I don't get out that much because the bow season has ended at that point, and I can't get back on state land until like the 20th of December. But my friends and everything who go out there with the gun, they'll be like, dude, they were running hard this morning. I saw 4 bucks chasing a doe, and it'll be like December 10th.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm going to do that this year. And usually I like hunting in snow. And usually you got a better chance of snow in December. Mm-hmm. So, not Vermont. Massachusetts and Connecticut need to share those laws. You guys should be able to hunt with a bow during rifle, and we should be able to hunt on Sunday on private. Mm-hmm. I'd be happy with that.
I would love to start a GoFundMe page or something to get people on board to change that law so you can use the bow during gun season.
That's why I think hunter numbers are important. We got to keep hunters, the population up, and the interest there. So we can have a power and a say, so that politicians don't rule everything that we do in the future, and ones that don't know anything about hunting, or they don't enjoy it, or they probably have those same perceptions of hunters that so many people do, that we're brutes, right?
Yeah, there's that aspect for sure, but there's also, as you know, there's a lot of dissension in the ranks with hunters. One guy's using this weapon, that weapon, somebody baits, somebody doesn't. Some guy's hunting out of a shed in somebody's backyard. Somebody's out in the big wilderness. So there's a lot of dissension in the ranks. It would be tough to, the guys that maybe were gun hunting, who they see less and less people in the woods, would be like, oh, now you're opening up the bow guys. There's gonna be bow guys all over the place. But I think that's far fetched. Like I said, I don't even see guys during bow season. And I'm hunting like right now.
Do you hunt deep in the public?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
I've hunted right behind houses where I can literally see people in their yard from my stand, a couple hundred yards away.
You've just been lucky and haven't ran into too many hunters.
Nope. Every now and then I run into people. I don't walk around in the woods either.
Yeah.
So I know the spots that I'm going to. I mean, I spring turkey hunted a lot this year, so I actually found some really good spots to bow hunt. Mm-hmm. One spot in particular, I'll make you laugh. One spot in particular, found a really good area, loaded with birds. Almost shot a couple in there, but didn't for one reason or the other. But also found a whole bunch of deer sign, and found what I thought was going to be a really good area. And I went back in before the season started, trimmed a few lanes to try to get into like just walking in so I wouldn't make a lot of noise. And I found somebody else's trail cam in there. Mm-hmm. So it was locked to the tree, whatever. Great, okay. Well, we can share, it's all public, so you can share land. So I came in a couple days later, hunted in the afternoon. No worries. I found the tree that he was climbing because you could see the marks in the tree from the climber.
Yeah.
And came in like a week after that. And the trail that I had trimmed to get in, he must have went in there with a chainsaw. Because I'm walking in the dark and there's leaves in the trees and everything, and I wasn't super familiar with the area. But I'm walking in and I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, I think I'm on the right trail. I didn't put any stickies in the tree, anything, because it wasn't too far of a walk. And I looked down at the ground, and there were trees that were the size of your leg that he had cut and laid across the trail that I had just made nice to get through some thick brush. And I said, this is not even worth it. What am I doing? I was trying to make my way in there. I'm like, if this guy's taking the time to do all this, A, it's either a wonderful spot, and B, he's just kind of a jerk for doing that. But I'm not even going to bother with it. So I walked away from that spot. But there's some areas that I'll go in. I mean, I'll look at my map and online, and I'll be in anywhere from 3/4 to 1.25 miles from where my car's parked. Not necessarily all through woods. It could be down a trail or whatever, like a walking trail to get to where I got to get to. But I've also hunted some areas where I'm in 1/4 mile.
Yep. I like to work for it a little bit. That's how I always did. Growing up in Vermont, you got to work for your deer, especially the hills and mountains where I'm hunting there, and then here.
So are you dragging the deer out from back there?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's always been part of it. So like when you get a deer here, It is crazy that some of the people, what they will say is a long drag. Like my buddy Chris. Granted, he did help me drag. He probably dragged more.
So they don't know how to calculate distance. Number one, and they over exaggerate. So keep those two things in mind.
But the thing is, like, I'm used to like these hard drags from the woods in Vermont that can take you 4 or 5 hours, and here, like, if it takes you a half hour, it's a long drag. It's a long drag, and you got to have a sled or a game cart or something. And no, I enjoy the drag part of it. Last year I was not in good shape. Chris helped me out big time, but I enjoy the drag and having a beer when you get out, and maybe having a beer halfway out if someone brings you in some.
So this deer over
libations.
Here, this 7-pointer that I got on state land, I was in probably a mile, and it was uphill, so I was dragging most of it down until I got to a swampy area and everything.
Yep.
And he was big. I didn't know how big, but I shot some deer that are, dressed 185, 190. This guy in Rhode Island was 195 dressed. And I got down, I shot him in the afternoon, got him gutted out by dark and everything else, and started dragging. And it was one of those days where it was like 75 degrees out, hot. I had been in my stand. I probably didn't bring any water with me, and I was dying. And I called my brother. And I was like, dude, I am in the woods right now with this big-ass deer. I'm like, because he lived pretty close. I'm like, can you come over here and help me? I'm like, I'll be out at the car. We'll walk back in and get it. He's like, sure. But yeah, so, it probably wasn't that far of a drag, but just having someone else out there to help out.
Yeah.
And then my son's a big boy too. He's down at University of or King University in Tennessee.
Is he playing sports?
He's playing baseball as well. Yeah, but he's bigger into fitness at his age than I was, for sure. And he's just, he's 6'3", like 215, just he's all muscle and he's ripped. When you're 21 years old, it's wonderful. You can eat whatever you want, everything else. But it was nice having him in the woods because we've shot some deer together and he gets to drag it out.
Got a dragger.
I'm like, I'll carry your boat. Yeah, you drag the deer. So yeah, but you got to keep in mind, a lot of guys over exaggerate how far they are actually in, and then how far they're in. And then how big the deer is. That thing must have weighed 200 pounds. Well, there's not a lot of deer that weigh 200 pounds,
Yeah, people I noticed that in Massachusetts too. It's a big thing in Vermont, Maine, New Hampshire, I think, too. But like weighing your deer.
Weighing the deer.
People don't like to weigh their deer.
I love weighing the deer.
Yeah.
I love it.
Absolutely.
I've shot some deer on state land that have been 175, 180, 185 pounds field dressed. I'll bring them, I got a butcher that does it, and we'll weigh them. He's like, you want to put it on the scale? I'm like, absolutely.
Yep.
Put it on the scale. I want to see,
Because 200 is that number that
I have not shot one that's been dressed weight of 200.
Well,
this guy was close.
They're few and far between down far south as we are. They have to be bigger in Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont. Closer you get, the more further north you get, the harder the winters, the bigger you got to be. But there are some. I'm surprised that one. What time of year did you get that one?
He was November 4th.
Yeah, so
it was going to say pre-rut before he started running and everything else.
So he was full weight there.
Yep. A lot of people say I lose a lot of weight during the rut and everything. I do agree with that, but I think early on in the rut, because they're just filled with testosterone, it's like being on steroids.
He left his heart in there. He probably would have been 200 pounds.
Yeah, So it's funny.
What's the story on this? Let's tell the story.
So the story on this guy. So parents had a house in Charlestown, Rhode Island, and I met a friend down there who I met a kid at that time because I was only 17 years old. So he's my first buck.
Wow.
He's the first buck I ever shot.
Yep. Awesome.
So I had shot.
But also not, because you've been trying to get back there and you haven't yet.
Yeah, it's we don't have the house anymore, so all that stuff's gone. But I had been bow hunting for 5 years. So when I was 12 and then turned 17, so it was my 6th season, and I'd never shot a deer with a bow. So talk about immediate gratification, there was none. But that addiction of being out there and getting that deer close to you during those first 5 years, and all the mistakes I made, and all the time I put into it, missed deer, everything else, and I had shot a doe. My first deer was a doe early in the year. I think it was Columbus Day weekend. I shot a doe.
But that was after 5 years of going out, hitting hard and not... Right?
Yeah, yep. So when you turn 16 or 17 in Connecticut, you can hunt by yourself. Before that, you're supposed to be with a mentor or an adult or whatever. That's, and I totally agree with that. So Rhode Island was similar to that, but so I was hunting both Connecticut and Rhode Island at the time, and there was an area that we found, my friend and I had found a rub the season or the winter before on a tree that was like the size of your leg in this one swampy area. So, us not knowing much, we were like, well, this is a good spot. Just put let's get a stand up in a tree over there, find out where the wind's blowing from or whatever. And The next September, we went in there. We cleared some lanes out. It was private land that we had permission to hunt on. And this guy had already started rubbing and making scrapes in September. At least we think it was him. There was a couple of deer trails that came in. So I had hunted that area by myself four times. Now, I was only going down on the weekends because we'd only go down there on the weekends or whatever. We fished a lot. My dad and I fished a lot. So, and you can hunt on Sundays. So I only spent 4 times I spent in a stand hunting this guy. Saw nothing. I think one morning I got in there super early because I had misjudged what the clock was. And I sat in my stand for like an hour before it got light out.
I did that once.
Oh my God! When you're 15 years old, every sound you hear, you think it's like the boogeyman coming after you. But I heard one deer, and that was it. And so November 4th, I hunted in the morning, saw nothing. And as I was walking out, there was like an old logging trail that I was coming out on, and it was all torn up with scrapes. Between the time, I'm sorry, I take that back. I walked out, and I said I'm gonna hunt that stand in the afternoon. Went back to that stand and went back in. I came out in the morning at 10:30. Probably went back in around 2, and there were scrapes littered on the trail. And I'm like, well, this might be good. Too. Yeah. So this guy, just before dark down there, I was using a grunt tube, and the time back then, like a grunt tube was like nobody knew really what it was. Does it work? Does it not? And I was grunting, and I saw this guy moving up on a ridge, and he came down the trail. So 25 yards, and shooting fingers back then, everything else.
Wow.
Shot him. Yeah. Arrow went right through. He ran up the hill a little bit, and I lost him. Didn't see him anymore. So I waited probably about 15, 20 minutes. Got down from my stand, went over, couldn't find my arrow, but found blood everywhere. I'm like, okay. So I had from the time I shot him to the time I found him was probably half an hour. And I remember this. I came up over a little hill. He'd only gone about 75, 80 yards. And I was going around a pine tree, and I saw him, and he was just laying there. I'm like, great. And he picked his head up and looked at me.
He didn't get up?
No, he couldn't get up.
So did you back out?
So I sat down for a little bit, and he was just sitting there staring at me. And I said, you know what? I said, we got to end this as quick as possible. So I shot him one more time, and that was it. He was done.
Where'd you shoot him?
So the first shot went through he was slightly quartering away. It went through like the left lung and the liver. So the liver is what did it. I mean, it blew right through.
What was your finishing shot? Did you shoot him in the neck or
no? Right through the lungs. Yeah, right behind the shoulder. And once it hit him, he was done. He was probably going to pass away, within 15, 20 minutes. I don't know, but if I didn't do that. But I said, let's just get this done.
Yep.
So
you guys had your moment where you're looking at each other too. Yeah. It was probably a little spiritual.
A little bit. So you see how wide he is.
Yeah.
So I had never shot a buck, whatever. The doe I shot probably weighed 105 pounds or whatever, field dressed. And I didn't want to field dress him where he was because I knew the area was pretty good. So I was like, well, I'll drag him out to a different area. Now I'm 17 years old. I probably weigh 70 pounds or whatever. So I grab him by one antler like you used to see on like October Whitetails with Gene and Barry Wenzel, right? I grab him by one antler and I go to move him. I couldn't budge him. I'm like, uh-oh. So now what do I do? I took my bow, I put it over my shoulders and everything, and I grabbed him by both sides of his antlers and stuck him on the sides of my hip backwards, and I dragged him.
Still, and it was probably still
one
hard.
Step at a time, step at a time, and I got him to where I had to get to. And
on the hoof, he's probably 250.
Yeah, he was a big deer, and got him back to the house. We took care of him from there, but that was a really, really cool thing. Of course, I was on cloud 9 for like months after that.
That's great.
But,
that's just an awesome deer.
Yeah. And I've seen bigger ones down there, but he's pretty special to me.
What kind of woods terrain was it? You said swamp, right? It was the edge of a swamp.
Yeah. So Rhode Island, if any guys are out there listening or whatever, they probably know what this is all about. But Rhode Island's got a lot of scrub oak, a lot of scrub oak trees, a lot of bigger oak trees. There's not as many maples down there as there is here. A lot of pines down there, and then there's swamps. So I haven't run into too many swamps in Connecticut like I have in Rhode Island, but the swamps are really good because they're just. I just found that deer lived in the swamps, and then you'd find these high spots in between. And when I say high spots, it could be like a 5-foot rise, but they're dry.
Yeah.
And that's where you would find all the sign. You'd find all the rubs, all the scrapes. You'd see where they were chewing on acorns, everything else. So they would live in the swamps. They'd follow the edges of the swamps, the contours, and then you just find the high spots down there.
And that's just where they partied.
And that was it.
Yes.
That was it.
Yeah.
And it seems like where I'm hunting in Connecticut, there are swamps, but the swamps seem to be more in just low-lying areas with no ridges or anything in between them. It's usually just on the sides.
Yeah. So how would you, if you got a high point in the swamp, how would you hunt it? Do you go in midday and wait for them to come out at night into that high spot, or what Like, do you get right into the middle of the high spot? Do you hunt? Like,
No, I would.
What's the key there?
Well, I guess it depends if you like to hunt morning or afternoons.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'll listen to some of the other podcasts, and most of the guys, we all agree that mornings during the rut seems like it is, you're going to have the most activity. And afternoons, you're going to have one shot of activity, and that's it. So I would get into that area for a swamp. I would try to find where they're coming up from the swamp, like 1 or 2 trails, and just set up off that.
Yeah.
And leave the rest of that high spot and everything else to just them being comfortable. Everything else, just don't get into where they're.
They bed in the high spot too sometimes, right? If it's in the middle of the swamp or something, they'll get in there.
I've seen that too. Yeah. So you just got to be careful how much you're stomping around in there. So I would like to get in, if I can get in through a swamp, and then get to that high spot. Just get right to the edge of it. So you've got the thick brush, everything else on one side of you, and then you've got some open stuff on the other. You're limited with your shots anyways because you got so much, cover in there. But I would do that, definitely that, and then play the wind, and don't play the wind so much to your advantage. Play the wind to their advantage.
Yep.
So you got to try to find
their wind.
You got to try to find a wind where they think that they're safe.
Yeah.
But you still have an advantage.
And that's your plan, right? You're right on the edge at that point, right? Like you're taking a risk. You gotta like when people say that, it's like the wind is just offset from the trail, right? That it's blowing by the trail a little bit, but it doesn't cross where they're going to be walking. So you got to razor thin there.
And then also if you're hunting, so I because I've gone out west and you're playing the thermals so much, you start understanding like how the thermals are going to affect your hunt here.
That's something we haven't talked about on here yet, so I'm sure some people are wondering. Talk about thermals. What do they do in the morning? What do they do at night?
Yeah, so thermals, everything gets cold at night. So that cold air is going to rush down that mountainside or that hillside. It's going to rush down into the valleys because cold air is heavier than warm air.
So if you're in a night spot and deer are traveling below you, you might want to rethink your position.
Yeah, you can get it. So I've gone in. I'm sure you've gone in there too. But I've gone in situations like that, and the wind is across the mountain or the hill or whichever, or it's blowing directly up. But then as soon as that sun starts to set, whatever, you feel the wind on the back of your neck and it's blowing down where you think the deer are coming from. And you don't see any deer. And you're like, well, there's no deer here. Well, no, there's deer there, but they know how to play all this stuff. So a lot of times I'll go into a stand area where the wind is poor for where they're crossing, not necessarily where they're bedding, but where they're going to cross. But usually by that time in the morning or the afternoon when the thermal switch, it'll be perfect for you. Yeah. So, and I've killed a lot of deer doing it that way. And then, vice versa, like you're saying in the afternoon, so you're going to get that air that's rushing up the hill. Once that morning air starts to warm up the top of the hill or whatever, that's those thermals start to switch and the warm air starts to rise. So you play the wind according to, you look at weather, weather.com or whatever, and you find out, you got a southeast wind today. Well, you get up to where you're getting to, you might have a northwest wind or something, for 2 hours in the morning or 2 hours in the afternoon until it switches with the
like
thermals.
using AccuWeather. If anybody wants to find AccuWeather I found to be perfect. And they are really, really accurate to the minute sometimes on when it's going to rain and when the winds are going to switch up. I've just found AccuWeather super helpful. And also you can, I don't remember if it's that site or another one, but if you want to see what winds do the year before, you can look all the way back to the year before.
Really?
Like you can probably find what the weather was doing on this day that you killed this buck in 2005 and find out what the wind was doing. They have all that stuff recorded. You can find it online. I forget the name of the site. I'll bring it up if I find it. But
so two things that work really cool, and I picked up on this. I've used this to my advantage. Just get a little thing of bubbles. Yep. Like kids' bubbles.
Yeah, but it smells.
And take it out in the woods with you.
Yeah.
I don't know how much they smell. I mean, they dissipate. But if you want to find out what the wind is doing...
Everybody's using the milkweed now.
Yeah, the milkweed is okay, but the bubbles, because they're super light, you just blow a whole bunch of bubbles and you kind of see where they're going. So I've had times...
I got a new product idea. You and I are both in sales. Let's make bubbles out of deer piss.
That'll be great. Yeah. The first time that bubble pops in front of your face, you're like, oh, man, what am I doing? Yeah. But... yeah, the bubbles work great because I've had times when deer, which I perceive as them being directly downwind, and they didn't smell you at all. And you're like, why didn't they smell you? Well, thermals. Yep. You're hunting on damp, wet days. And on those days, the thermals are going to bring the air closer to the ground. You hunt on these dry, like we've had a lot of dry weather. Everything's going to start rising. You look at the chimney, on damp days and then bright days. So that's got smoke coming out of it. But so you look at where the bubbles are going, and they travel a long ways. And you can kind of get an idea of how good that stand is or how poor that stand is.
Yep.
So So you might think that the deer are coming in from a certain area and the wind is blowing left to right, but then you watch those bubbles and they swirl and they go back down to right where the deer are coming from.
Yep.
So.
And if you're in a stand and you got like a ridge behind you or something, you know, your scent might carry over a deer if it's under your stand, but it might blow right into the ridge, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you learning all of that stuff is good. So to recap for new guys, like, you want to study thermals, it's basic, it's simple science stuff, right? Heat rises, and if it cools down, the air drops to the ground. So when that's happening in the weather throughout the day, that's what's happening to your scent. And what do you think about when it rains? So I was talking with my buddy the other day. I've always been under the impression that when it's raining, your scent is down and damp, and you don't have to worry as much about scent. But he's heard some guys that say, well, because it's pushing your scent down, it's right where the deer are, so it's worse for your scent when it's raining. What do you think about that?
Oh, I got to imagine, like, going back to my pheasant hunting days, in those days when you get a hard frost on the ground, you know, the dog doesn't smell anything, but as soon as that frost melts or you get a damp day, they can smell everything. So they'll pick up more birds. I have to imagine that it's worse for your scent during those times. I could also look at it conversely and say, well, your scent's only being pushed down to one spot. It's not drifting not drifting over another ridge.
So your trail that you're walking in on is
going to be where the scent is, everything is at. I personally hate hunting when it's quiet. I hate it.
I haven't heard one deer this year. I've seen 27 deer so far. I haven't heard one of them. It's just been so quiet and windy and rainy.
So I like hunting anytime, but I hate hunting when it's quiet and wet.
Yeah.
Because the deer.
Because you like that crunch, dude. The crunch is so good. Well, the
crunch is great and everything, but I've also been in my tree. I mean, last year I got caught a couple times where you're sitting in your stand and you're looking one direction thinking the deer are coming from that direction, and then you hear a twig snap and you turn around and there's a deer standing 15, 20 yards behind you.
Yeah.
And because you turn around so quick or whatever, they pick you off. I'd rather hunt in windy conditions and have it be, 10, 15, 20 mile an hour winds. I had a friend who makes fun of me for going out during the winds, but I've seen some of my best bucks during the rut when it's windy. Yep. I just think they feel like they're secure. And
during the rut, you just got to hunt every time you can, any time. Doesn't matter.
Yep.
But
yep.
Yeah, and I agree with you. It seems like this year too, so many of the deer have came right from behind. Like they've walked basically the same trail I did to get into my stands, and I'd set up and I think, out in front of me is going to be the prime spot, and this buck's going to come in picturesque and right from where I want him to.
It doesn't happen very often.
They have been behind me almost every time this year. It's crazy.
Yep.
And then the point that you said, like the other night I had a doe come in behind me, and she was 15 yards away, and I would have shot her if I could have turned, but I couldn't turn without her picking me off. There's just no way. She was so close. But you do that kind of owl's head slow turn like this, and you can, deer will pick up a sudden movement, but if you move like a sloth, they're not going to pick that up.
Yep.
So if you have deer in front of you that you don't want to spook, and I'm talking to like guys there's so many guys listening to this podcast that this year is their first year and they don't know any of this stuff. Move like a sloth when a deer is around you. Also, if I'm wearing a flat brim hat or something, I like to take the hat off when I get into the stand, and put on like a face mask, because it's less, this brim can be caught in the light moving more than just a hat that's, winter's type hat that's a skull cap type thing, right? So then when you move slowly like that to look behind you, the deer doesn't see anything. It's just the same pattern, but they could see the brim, whatever. And if you move fast, they're going to pick you off. But I've had so many deer really, really close, thinking that something was up, even like looking up at me and kind of stomping in on me this year. But stay super still, and you're not going to spook them out of there.
Yeah, and stay away from your phone. The phone is evil.
It is
in the stand. It's just evil.
Yep. And I'm trying to get stuff on film this year, and it's not.
Yeah. Just, you're on your phone. You're on. You're looking at something on there. You're on Google. You're on Bowsite. Whatever. You're looking at whatever on there, and you spend too much time looking down instead of looking at what's going on around you. And I know that I'm not the only person that's been caught off guard when you hear a deer coming in, or
no way,
or you don't hear one coming in, and you turn and look, and it's standing right there.
Yeah, it's happened to me multiple times this year already. I was sitting on the ground when my dad came down and wanted to get him a doe, and I wasn't carrying my climber in or anything. I was just ground hunting, putting him in spots and sitting somewhere. That was coming right off the podcast I did with John Coffey. Did you listen to that one? He hunts the ground with a recurve bow. And
the ghillie suit guy?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I was just like, yeah, you know, when my dad comes down, I'll just stick to the ground. I didn't obviously listen to him, and I didn't get behind the root ball or a big tree. I was just in the bad spot all these times. But deer were sneaking up behind me, and I turned, and there was a doe, and then there was a buck in that spot, and I didn't have enough time to position when he was behind something.
I give a lot of props to anybody that can shoot a deer on the ground with a bow.
Yep.
I've shot one. And not that I try that much, but I was trying that time to shoot one, and I did. So I got fortunate. But it is so hard. It's so hard to do. If you're not just moving super slow or not moving at all, it's way, way hard. I hunt 99% of the time out of my tree stand.
Yeah.
So I have a climber.
Some people get them on the way in or way out, too. You know, walking if you're not in the dark.
I haven't been that guy.
Yeah, well, I'm always going in the dark and going out in the dark. So
yeah, I have not been that guy. Same thing. I'm going in the dark. I'm coming out in the dark, in the afternoons or whatever. But yeah, I have not been that guy. I've jumped deer and everything else and have them stand there and look at you, too far away. But yeah, I'm not that guy.
Well, this hour and 15 flew by. You have anything else you want to cover before we? That
was good
wrap
stuff,
this one
man.
up.
Very good stuff.
No,
yeah.
Dude, thanks for driving an hour and a half. And could be doing anything else on a Sunday, but I really appreciate it.
I had a chance to go chase striped bass and false albacore this morning, so. But I think I'm going to go surf fishing this afternoon, so I'm going to try that. I know they're running good, so we'll try doing that.
Where do you go? Where do you do that?
Rhode Island. Yeah,
Yep.
All along shoreline down there, everywhere from.
Have you ever done the Cape Cod Canal?
Nope.
Yeah, I've heard people. I've just heard that it's tough in there, shoulder to shoulder, and.
Yeah, no, I pick my way through the rocks everywhere from Weekapaug, Quanticochog, all the way up to Point Judith.
Yep.
And everything, if you can gain access to it. Is
it striper most of the time, or you like doing a bunch of other stuff?
I fished a lot in the spring. We got a bunch of bluefish, small stripers. Now they're running pretty good. But mostly stripers. Yeah, stripers, blues.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, they're pretty good eating too. Caught a couple last year. Just went out.
Yeah,
with
get a Traeger. Get a Traeger grill. They make everything taste better.
That's one thing that I am. Yeah, I know. So many people are telling me.
Yeah, you got to get one. My son bought one on the spring, and we cooked everything on it. And
is it easy to learn?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, very easy. Slow cook, smoke it, everything else. They're not the Traegers, whatever. Any of the pellet grills, I don't think they're that good to do. Like you just want to throw a burger on it because they don't get super hot. Mm-hmm. But everything else, steaks, loins. We did
game meat,
pork. We did turkey. We did bass, striped bass in it. Everything.
They got different flavor pellets to give it a different.
Yeah. Amazing. It'll turn your whole culinary world around for the outdoors.
That's it. I'm getting one.
You got to get one, especially if you get a couple deer. There's no better way to eat them on there. No better way.
I'm gonna be afraid the first time, but so maybe I'll throw.
You can't mess it up.
All right.
You can't mess it up.
Cool.
All right, awesome, man.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle.
Yep, thank you.
Yep, talk to you soon. Thanks for listening to the Hunt Suburbia podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. We're going to release an episode every single Sunday throughout the season, throughout the entire year, and we will possibly be releasing some bonus episodes here and there throughout the week as people, come in freshly off a bow kill and tell their stories. We hope that happens throughout the season. There might be weeks where you get 2 or 3 bonus episodes. You might not get one for a couple of weeks, but there will be some bonus episodes. But you can count on us every single Sunday to have a new interview on throughout the season. Once again, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week. Big bucks I've been dreaming often, every night till I'm in a coffin. Vermont woods to the burbs of Boston, I'm looking for a tree to get lost in. Crisp mornings, little dust in the snow. Quality time, just me and my bow. Fall evenings, I know just where to go for some quality times for me and my bow. It's just me and my